Hello, everyone. This is Talk the Block, the podcast where we break down the HGTV hit Rock the Block. And I'm crammed here today in the recording studio with my partner, Steven. Hey, Steven, how you doing today?
I am doing pretty well. Wow, what foreshadowing.
Yes, we had some interesting vocabulary on this week's episode, which is Season 5, Episode 2, Living Room Redemption.
Is the living room close to the ocean?
Well, we'll see. I guess we'll learn as we go through this podcast. Stephen, what were some of your overall impressions of this week's episode?
Well, I think there seems to be kind of a trend. We saw with the how three, as you say, one of these teams is not like the other. Three of the teams kind of had the same kitchen layout, right? So they had the same kitchen layout. So their living rooms kind of seemed very similar. And I think that there is, you could see a little bit of difference when it came to the different design perspectives of one team over another, and kind of where their tastes came in. But I think in general, it just kind of felt like the idea of how they were approaching this floor, three of the teams looked very similar.
Yes, one of these things is not like the other.
Right. And that team, for those of you that listened last week, it's Sarah and Brian.
Okay, so just to clear up what this challenge was for this week, because we were confused about it when they first talked about it on the show. This challenge is to finish everything on the first floor, which some people might call the second floor, but not the ground floor, the first floor, where they did the kitchen and dining room last week. So everyone did a living room, and then there was extra space left over, and I think there was some variation in how teams decided to divide that up. How many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, where are they placing things? But in general, at the end of this week's episode, that floor is pretty much completed.
Yeah, I'd say for three of the teams, they have no work to do on that floor. A little foreshadowing here, coming soon to a podcast later today that you're currently listening to, is one team we think didn't finish this week.
Yeah, and when we were watching the episode, we felt that Paige and Mitch just didn't have time to get everything done. And, they talked about throughout the episode how their tile didn't come in on time. At one point, they were snooping through all the boxes of tiles the other teams had to see if their tile was in that. But when the judging went through, parts of their bathrooms did not look finished, and we think maybe that late tile caused them really not to complete the project.
Yeah, so, but you're originally what you were saying is that first 2 weeks of this season finishes the first floor.
Yes.
So, and then, a little preview, which last week they didn't tell us what they were going to do this week, right? They just kind of... I don't remember seeing any sort of preview, but we did get a preview this week that said that next week they are going upstairs. So episode 3 will start, maybe it's 2 episodes per floor. I don't know. That's probably not right. But next week they'll at least start on the second floor, which is the top floor of 3, but it's the second floor.
Okay. Now, I think because a lot of this challenge was around space planning, that second floor was pretty much just a big cavernous space when they walked in on the first day. One of the things that I really liked about this episode was kind of how they did a flyover of each design. So as they were talking about, what each team was going to do, they did an overhead view that showed where all the walls were and what the layout looked like. And that was super helpful because sometimes you can get lost in these designs.
Yeah, it was. And that was something that they did on the TV show. It wasn't part of anybody's particular design, but they just kind of showed you the space and where stuff was, because it kind of got a little bit confusing because the one team put their kitchen near the front of the house. Again, it's kind of hard to then reorient yourself on the fact that where the feature wall is the back of the house, and then there's the front of the house. So what they had to finish was the front of the house of the first floor this week. And so, yeah, being able to see that really kind of made things make a lot more sense, because, again, I kind of just kind of coming in and starting to watch the show, I kind of had to remind myself, and seeing those diagrams really did help.
Yeah, I was getting confused just hearing you talk about it. So I think the flyover diagrams was a really useful feature in this week's episode. So anything else about the episode overall before we start diving into the team, Stephen?
They called, or at least one team, I think only Paige and Mitchell called it flex space, right? I think that's right. I don't remember anybody else calling it that. I'm not familiar with that term. I think it was clear what it meant was that it could be an office, or it could be a bedroom, right? Or it could be it could serve multiple purposes, that particular space. But I hadn't heard of it, and so that would just an introduction of a new term, I guess, would be the only thing I can think of right here. Did I miss something? Were you trying to lead me into something and I forgot?
No. I think we're good, Stephen. I think,
Oh, thank goodness.
Oh, the other thing that was good this week is no silly little competition where they had to like run around and find hidden treasure or throw darts at a wall or something like that and use unusual materials to build something. So I didn't miss it. I mean, it's a nice way to get the teams to interact, but those challenges, always seem a little silly, and sometimes they lead to bad design decisions because they end up having to use something that maybe they otherwise wouldn't want to use in the space.
Yeah, I think I was kind of expecting this. In the first week, they had to collaborate with their house teams. And then also when the elevator came in, all of the teams had to come out. And what is that? Oh, my gosh, it's an elevator. And then they all kind of just chit-chatted for a minute. And so I thought that's what was going to happen when Paige and Mitch started rummaging through everybody's shipment to see if their tile had actually been given to another team. I thought, well, here we go again. Surely, if the other teams knew they were going through their boxes of tile, they'd have come out. So they must have found a way to do it when the other teams weren't looking. And but that didn't happen. So the teams pretty much worked by themselves. A couple of the teams yell at each other through the window. Teams that are in houses 2 and 3 that even though they don't share a wall, they really share a wall. Because houses 2 and 3 are, what looks like about 5 feet apart, something like that, and that's Keith and Evan and Leslie and Lindsay. So, which I think I alluded to. I think it can be. I think those teams are at something of a disadvantage that the other teams that are house 1s and 4, Sarah, Brian, and 4, and Paige and Mitch in 1, don't have another home on the other side of one of their walls. And we did see that Sarah and Brian took advantage of that this week.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point, Stephen, because these are 2 duplexes. The teams that are on the outside of the 4 houses have more of a view and maybe a little bit of an advantage to take advantage of natural art or, foliage or whatever's out there. So it is interesting to see how this duplexes and the placement of the houses will influence the competition this year.
Yeah, and I'd even say I'm sure this isn't really going to influence the appraisal value of any of the properties, but looking out the back windows when they were showing Sarah and Brian's, they're the ones on the far, if you're looking at the front of the house, they're on the far right. That house kind of abuts an existing home site, and so then they're kind of right on that edge of the channel that's coming in, the inlet. So their view out the window kind of includes the homes and stuff like that. So if you're in house number 1, you're looking right down the middle of that channel. You don't see homes. So 2 and 3 actually are, have that advantage that they're not quite on that edge like in house 4. But still, I think So I guess clearly house 1 has the advantage right now anyway, except I guess all of the construction equipment is right beside them. But they don't have a shared wall on the one side. They get to see all the way down the channel. Beautiful view versus, whatever. Anyhow.
Okay, all right. So I think that's enough about the view and the placement of the houses. Let's dive into the designs. And Stephen, I'd like to propose that we do the 3 teams that had sort of very similar layouts first, and then we'll do Sarah and Brian last because they made different choices in the kitchen week that influenced what was available to them this week for the living room. So does that sound good to you?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, let's kick it off with Paige and Mitch. So Paige and Mitch were the winners last week. They did that beautiful kitchen with the pass-through counter to the balcony and the kitchen lift to bring up groceries from the garage. And so how do you think they did this week with the living room redemption design, Stephen?
Well, I thought that they did pretty well. As far as the living room goes, I think that they did pretty well. They have okay. Let's just define this. So, when you come up the stairs to the first floor, everybody in these 3 houses put the kitchen on the other side, on the wall on the other side. So the living rooms, you come up the stairs and the living room is right there. Mm-hmm. And so on the outside wall, the side wall, is where everybody put their fireplace.
Yes, all 3 did a fireplace, all in the same location.
In exactly the same spot. So that's where it is. That's where the living rooms are. And everybody kind of did their thing around that. I think...
This to me was, I thought, the least successful effort. Not that it was bad, but I felt like, number one, they had the tile problem, so their bathrooms did appear to be unfinished. They had just a small flex space. They did, basically their powder room was a full bathroom with a shower, and then they did a flex space with an ensuite bathroom. And the flex space seemed smaller than what other people did. I don't know why. And then they defined the flex space by putting a high-tech bed that basically you push a button and the bed floats up to the ceiling, and you push a button and the bed comes back down. So that was kind of a neat feature, but maybe it was a little gimmicky, and maybe they could have done the same thing just with a Murphy bed. What do you think, Stephen? Oh,
yeah. So the flex space, I thought we were talking about the living room. So but back to the living room. My note here was it looks like space they don't really know what to do with.
Oh.
So it was nothing wrong with it. It just was unremarkable. These in their particular home, you go past the living room, and then you go to the back of the house, and they had a washer dryer, and they had the powder room, and then this secret door. Don't tell anybody.
Yes.
There's a secret door. Now, the thing that was kind of cute, maybe a little bit made for TV. It was they did have this wood paneling that they had used in other places, and it was there. And so it really, on TV, it really looked like you wouldn't necessarily notice that there was a door there. The judging was without the competitors there, so having a secret door if the judges have no idea, how are they going to find it? So all of the contestants left these little notes, and they said to look for a secret door, but they had to have some clue as to where to look, because it did look pretty good as far as being hidden, but then you had the secret door to go to the ensuite, and
I just don't know why it was a secret door. Like, do they not want anyone to know there's another room back there, I guess? I don't know. Anyway, I didn't get a lot out of the fact that the door was secret. But.
No, and we went through a house recently, and here in our area, that you go into the office and there was a secret door, and you open up the secret door and there's like a copier. I mean, so secret doors must be, kind of trendy. That was one of the things that I kept annoying me, is that a couple of the designers kept saying, "Oh yeah, we want to find what the new trends are and do what the new trends are." And I'm not a trendy person, so trend stuff can look really, really good for the moment, but then in a year or two they look old. They look so that's not really what I'm looking for. So the secret door, okay, and I guess if what we're doing is trying to figure out how ways that we can add value to a house. I'm assuming that doing all this whatever to make it secret probably cost some dollars, but probably not a lot, but they cost something. And I don't think it's going to add anything to the value, aesthetic, appraisal, quality of life, whatever, at all. So it's kind of like they did it, but it's kind of wasted money. Mm-hmm. Kind of like the tech bed, in my opinion.
Yeah. And the tech bed was $15,000. That was a substantial investment. I would think a Murphy bed might be a little cheaper and serve the same purpose, that you could basically have an office that you could turn into a bedroom as needed. So it was cool. Don't get me wrong. Being a tech person, I thought it was kind of fun, but I'm not sure it was the best value for the money in terms of the appraisal for the house.
Yeah. Kind of looking at it, the second time we looked at it, I'm looking at these people, and I know most people on TV now, granted this is HGTV and not your 5'6", Sylvester Stallone actor. Maybe he's 5'10", I don't know. But anyway, so actors tend to be very short. People on TV tend to be very short. So you get a guy like Ryan Stiles, and he stands out in more ways than one. But I'm seeing the designers or the judges stand under this bed, and I'm going, it looks like they're almost about to hit themselves in the head. And I started thinking, are you looking at it? And it's because the bed, they got 10-foot ceilings, but the bed is
It hangs down probably 2 feet.
Yeah, it hangs down 2 feet. It's not completely against the ceiling. So, so this thing is under 8 foot. I think, it could start to get a little claustrophobic. And then because the bed is on the ceiling, there's no room for ceiling lights. So if the idea is this is supposed to be an office, where are the lights? And in fact, I thought, when they did the staging, they would have some place where, they have like a floor lamp. Nope. They didn't have any lights at all. In fact, the desk looked dark, not lit. And I'm looking at this, okay, this is something that is a neat idea that has a lot of detractors, and they may have spent $15,000 on it to buy it, but I think if they get any value out of it, it's not 15. So they think they lost money on this deal.
Yeah. So, if you look at the 3 categories for judging, aesthetics, appraised value, and functionality, their aesthetics were nice, but not like anything, I didn't think it was the top of the other teams. The appraised value, they did add 2 bathrooms, but just 1 bedroom. They did add a laundry room, so I guess maybe that counts for something. And then functionality, I think, we have to question that tech bed, was that the best choice or not? But let's play my favorite game, Stephen. Do they have a place for the TV? This drives me crazy. People design these houses, and I get you want it to be all beautiful and you don't want a TV there. But if someone's going to live in this house, they're probably going to want to have a TV in their living room so they can hang out, relax, watch HGTV, whatever. So do you believe that Paige and Mitch had a place where you could put the TV?
No.
They could potentially have hung it over the fireplace, but that was about it. Yeah.
I going back to the idea of they are trying to have appraised value. They're trying to hit appraised value. And I understand, if they bought a TV and they bought $1,000 TV and they hung it up, I mean, that's $1,000 and it's not going anywhere, right? It's not going to increase the appraised value or anything. It's up to the person that buys it to figure out where the TV is going to go. So,
but there should be a place.
But there should be a
I'm
place,
saying.
yeah.
Don't put the TV there, but if I'm the homeowner, there should be a place where I could put the TV where it doesn't look like really stupid.
Yeah, and I guess wrapping up the whole not finished part of it, where they decided to spend the $1,000 that they won last week, was they had originally planned to have a powder room, but they figured out that if they rearrange it a little bit, they could put a shower. So they've got this shower, and this is where you could see the ends of the tile. It was obviously not finished. There was no rod. There was no glass. And I assume most of these people are putting glass in front of the shower. They obviously had run out of time in both showers in this extra space area. So it was pretty obvious that they had run out of time because they would have done something. So
yeah, and totally sympathize. Like when the materials don't show up, projects take a step backward. On Rock the Block, there's no time for delays, and so they had to be judged even if maybe all the components they needed weren't in yet. Okay, so anything else on Paige and Mitch, or should we move along to Keith and Evan?
Well, I like to float little nicknames for these teams, and sometimes it kind of works, sometimes it doesn't. Both weeks, they have had leaks.
Paige and Mitch have had leaks.
Paige and Mitch have leaks. So I call them Team Drip.
Okay, that's maybe we want to keep that to ourselves. I don't know that they'd like to be called Team Drip, but it does feel like their house, the plumbing is a little bit suspect.
Yeah, it wasn't the plumbing. I think it was something else that was leaking. But either way, I mean, 2 weeks, they've had water on the floor. So week 3, no water. We'll come back to that nickname. Something else. I'd rather have something else, but, hey.
Okay. All right. So let's move on to Keith and Evan, shall we?
Okay. Keith and Evan. Well, what do you think?
Well, I was a little hard on Keith and Evan in our last podcast, with their kitchen and all the arches and the muted colors and everything. But now that I see the kitchen and the living room together, so as Stephen said, the kitchen is basically one half of the back wall, where the windows are to the water, and the living room is the other. And they have this very nice archway in between. And they also finished some beam work and shiplap across both the kitchen and the living room. So when I see that together, it looks a lot better than just seeing that ceiling work in the kitchen and just seeing the arch without anything on the other side. So I'll call it my own limitation that I didn't fully understand their vision when I saw it last week. And this week I liked it a lot better.
Yeah, I thought the colors looked fine. The defined space. One thing that I think they really did do better than the other two teams that are just like the other is that because they did have a wall. Now, it's just a little bit of a wall between the two spaces. Their living room felt bigger than everybody else's. Now, I'm assuming that if we were to go back and look at the kitchens, you would kind of look at their kitchen and say, well, maybe it feels like it's smaller than the others because there's the wall. But in a reality, the wall is open between those two rooms, so you would still have the same amount of room that the other teams have, but because they did that, and I think maybe they actually did include more room for the living room, because when we were looking at the doors going out, and again, they had fully articulating doors.
Love it.
Fully articulating, not just sliders. The other two teams that are just like the other have sliding doors. So the fully articulating doors open up and they get out of the way.
Uh-huh.
So they had 4 panels in the living room, and the other teams had 3. So I'm thinking it probably actually was a bigger space designed for the living room than the kitchen, which is fine. And I think it actually works well in this particular situation. You know, Keith likes his cozy spaces. It did look very comfortable. I think the color choices are good. Seeing the beams go across the ceiling in both of those spaces, it did look good. I really think. And I think one of the things that they did better, their choices of furniture for their staging, I think looked really, really nice. They had 2 couches across from each other, and I thought they looked really comfy. I thought that was really good choices.
Yeah, and Stephen, I agree with you. I mean, having that archway to sort of give a little definition between the kitchen and the living room helped a lot. It actually, conversely, kind of made the living room feel bigger. And I think also you still get that open feel where someone who's in the kitchen can talk to the people in the living room, but it just gives more definition to the space. Now, one thing about the living room, let's play my favorite game. Where would the TV go in this living room? And I just didn't see a good space because the top of their fireplace was kind of curved in. And if you tried to hang a TV on there, it would be really ugly. You would lose all the architectural elements of that. The only other places you could potentially put a TV would be like right in front of a window. So, I did have to dock them a point for not having a good TV spot.
Yeah, and I felt like if you really wanted to, you could put a mount on the furnace. Now, I realize that it slopes back away, but the TV mounts, usually you can move the TV around, so it's not, even though that area was sloped, it really didn't look inviting for a TV because of the way it was designed, and then it tapered going up to, so the TV would extend past the tapering, and I think it would look kind of bad.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think again, it was their idea was they don't really care if somebody has a TV or not. If somebody buys a place, it's their problem.
Yeah. Okay, but if I were buying it, I would think about that.
Yeah, my thing that I guess I didn't like when going back again to their staging is that they put a curtain rod over their windows, and then they had curtains, and then at the same time they had curtains, they had nowhere for the curtains to go, so the curtains blocked part of the view, and then on the side with the wall, with the outside wall, they had kind of this seating bench that went along the wall, which went up to the window, and so the curtains looked like they had nowhere to go.
Yeah, they didn't need curtains. This is a back wall. No one's looking in from the inlet. I thought the curtains just kind of gave it a bit of a claustrophobic feel. I agree with you there, Stephen.
Well, should we try to cram in more information about their en-suites?
Yeah, let's try to cram that in, Stephen. And we're using their words that they crammed in 2 bedrooms and 2 ensuite bathrooms into the front of the house. And I thought it was funny because that's exactly what I was thinking, that they crammed in 2 bedrooms and 2 ensuite bathrooms. So they were really trying to rack up the points on the appraisal this week with 2 extra bedrooms and 2 extra bathrooms. So you got to give it to them, for being sort of the artistic team. They were trying to play the game and earn some points here. But I just didn't think it was the smartest choice for the house. I thought there were some better ways that they could have used that space and still kind of had the 2-bedroom flex space feel. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Stephen?
Well, their goal was to win the week, not to do the right thing for the space. That was, so they did it. They crammed 2 bedrooms, one small and one decent, and they had 2 bathrooms. And I guess the one that dealt with the office, and to their credit, they didn't stage it as a bedroom. They staged it with an itty-bitty little desk, itty-bitty little chair, so it looks bigger, but it's not. So, to their credit, you say, okay, this is office space, and if somebody needs to put a bed in there, well, yeah, you can put a bed in there, and then they've got their own bathroom, and that bathroom, I guess, is a shared bathroom, would be the powder room bathroom, so maybe you got to keep that a little cleaner, but yeah, I mean, they crammed it in there, and they got points for it on the judging, so good for them. I think that when we come back to it, if they were being honest, they would say they wish they hadn't done it, but they had a reason to do it, and from that standpoint, I think it paid off.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it probably was the secret to them getting the win, and we'll talk about the judging at the end of the episode.
You giving it away again?
I can't help it, Stephen. Full disclosure, if you're listening to this podcast, we assume you've watched the show already. So, spoiler alert, we're going to tell you what happened. And again, full disclosure, I'm not a designer, but I mean, I would have liked to see something with maybe a Jack and Jill bathroom between the 2 bedrooms. So if you wanted to use that space as sort of a suite with a office/sitting room and bedroom and then the bathroom in between, I thought that would be a very nice guest space. Or you could have, you could potentially use it as 2 bedrooms and just have a shared bathroom and then have a real powder room and not a ensuite bathroom that you walk through to get to one of the bedrooms that's also your powder room. I just felt that was a little bit, I don't know. It wasn't the design I would have chosen, but again, they had good reasons for doing it.
Yeah, one of the things that they kind of got knocked a bit about was using the same tile in both of those showers. Now, if I remember right, they showed Keith putting the tile up himself, not using spacers. I've done my own bit of tile work too, but I will hearken back to a Home Depot commercial where it shows the guy running out of spacers when he's doing the wall. So maybe not everybody's familiar with that commercial. I think it's hilarious. Anyway, they're not using spacers, putting them up by hand, which means that they're not going to be in the same orientation because it's based upon how somebody thinks they look as opposed to how they look. Now, that being the case, when they showed the bathrooms, I thought they looked pretty good. So maybe somebody came in afterwards and cleaned it up, but I thought they did okay. Where, kind of jumping ahead, there's another bathroom we haven't talked about yet where it looks like they did it by hand and it looks like they had no clue what they were doing. It looks like something I would be ashamed to say I had done, but maybe they wanted it to look that way. But giving Keith credit, I gave Amy some flack for him not using spacers, but I think it did look okay.
Yeah, I thought their bathrooms looked nice.
And they gave him flack about using the same tile.
Who cares? They're guest bathrooms. Yeah. I mean, not everyone has to be its own adventure.
It was pretty tile. I like the tile. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you just didn't like it, then fine. I mean, but they're the judges. Everybody has their own taste, right? So.
Okay, so let's move on to the twins, Lindsay and Leslie. And while Keith and Evan crammed 2 bedrooms into their space, Lindsay and Leslie, to use their own words, dumped a second suite into the front of their house. So we had some really interesting vocabulary choices this week. And, I love the fact that they said they dumped it. It didn't look like a dump, but that's the word they chose. So, Stephen, what did you think of Lindsay and Leslie's design this week?
I'm gonna jump back a quick second to my nickname for Keith and Evan, Team Oboe. Because when you're watching TV shows and they start playing the oboe music, they're losing. It's on on those like a Top Chef or whatnot, those competition reality shows. When you start hearing the oboe music, it's forewarning. So they did win this week. Congratulations, guys. You guys deserved it. So happy to see that. But I think there's a lot of oboe music, and I'm expecting more art projects coming in the following weeks. So,
well, we got a hint of what they're doing next week in the preview, so we can talk about that at the end.
I'm so excited.
Okay, so Lindsay and Leslie, the twins, so they did the
Team
mullet design.
Doom.
I don't know why he calls them Team Doom.
Let's find a way to lose.
Steven, you're kind of mean.
Well, they are finding ways to lose. They're trying to lose. The whole idea of the powder room was the Golden Girls TV show. They used wallpaper that was Beatrice's bedspread, and I didn't even know that. I watched the Golden Girls. It was hilarious. But what year? Did I miss something? Did we go back in time? What year is this? Golden Girls? You're going to take this Florida bathroom and it's inspired by the Golden Girls?
Yeah, I am right with you.
Doom.
Okay, I'm not with calling them Team Doom. They're very happy, friendly people. But,
they are. They should be better.
But I have to admit, I think this powder room was a swing and a miss. I mean, they had this, first of all, they had a vessel sink. Not a fan of vessel sinks. Second of all, it was this bright pink color from the 60s and a matching bright pink toilet from the 60s and not so attractive pink tile in the shower in the powder room. Apparently, we have to have showers in powder rooms now. And I'm just like, didn't I rip all this out of the house that we used to own in Seattle?
We had a pink jacuzzi tub, a pink sink, pink tile, pink toilet with the golden fixtures to go with it when we bought that house. Oh my gosh, it was horrible.
Now, Lindsay and Leslie's were a little bit nicer than what we had in our house in Seattle.
Granted, ours were like 20 years old. So,
yeah. But I will say, for those of you who are pink lovers, don't hate on me. I'm sorry. I just think it was a very specific design choice. So if it's your own home and you live there and you want a pink sink, go with God, right? But if you're building a house that you're expecting a buyer to be attracted to, something that's so specific and may be off-putting, I just don't think I would make that choice in the powder room.
Well, and the judges called it out for being too pink.
Yeah.
And, and I think, the judges, a couple, the season 2 winners, and I think she likes pink. He doesn't care for it. And she's like, wow, that's just too much pink. Oh my gosh, too much pink. Anyway, so I alluded to this earlier. It was in that shower that the tile looked like it had been done by hand by somebody that really didn't care. I mean, okay, it just looked off. And it could have been the design of the tile, and it was supposed to look that way. But one thing that I wasn't quite sure about, so they had, so instead of it being a glass wall between the toilet and the shower, it was a real wall with this lovely tile on it, as well, the tile on that wall as well as in the shower. So about 3, hard to tell dimensions, 3 foot off the floor is about a 1 foot square opening between the shower and the toilet where they had a plant. Now, and that's where the shower head is. I'm assuming that you could get some spray through that opening if somebody's in there taking a shower. I'm like, why would you do that?
Yeah, I didn't get it the archway. It was really a walk-in shower in the powder room, I believe, because the door was an arch. And again, I'm thinking you're going to have to keep that clean all the time because guests are going to come in there, you're not, so I maybe there's room in people's lives for a shower in the powder room. I know my sister in California has one, but I'm just kind of like, Stephen. Okay, all right. So, their living room was pretty much the same design as we've already said to Paige and Mitch and Keith and Evan. They had a fireplace along one wall, and then they opened doors. They look kind of nice. They had 3-door sliders in the kitchen and in the living room, so there was some nice symmetry there. And they used the wood flooring throughout that living room kitchen area and on the ceiling in the living room kitchen area. So, I mean, it looked good. And their fireplace could easily have had a TV hanging on the fireplace. So they did have a good TV spot in their living room.
Yeah, this is one of the places where I thought their staging goes against them, because they had like 2 Roman chaise lounges, and then they had a chair at the end of them, and then they had a chair at 2 chairs that were between them. And so looking at it on the pictures, there was no way to actually get into any of those chairs because they were all, they weren't crammed. They were dumped. They dumped all this furniture in front of the fireplace in such a way you couldn't have. I mean, if you was it the Fonz would jump over furniture, and so if you were the Fonz, since we're going back to the Golden Girls, I guess we can go back to.
We're really going back to.
Welcome back, Cotter's coming. Let me tell you. But anyway, so
we're not recapping TV land here.
Oh, that's right.
So
okay. What's this podcast again?
Okay, back to HGTV's
Back to the Future?
Rock the Block.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Right.
Anyway, I will say. One thing that drives me crazy on these Rock the Blocks is that people do not give the homeowner enough closet space. And so they did this second ensuite bedroom. The bedroom was very big. They had 2 twin beds in there. There was lots of space. They had the love it or hate it, the palm wallpaper, green wallpaper all along one wall. And it was pretty dramatic. But then in the closet, they chose to put in a washer-dryer in this guest or second suite closet. And to me, I like clean clothes as much as the next person, but the closet wasn't that big, so your hanging space was really limited, right? So I just feel like, for this big, luxurious second suite, if you really had somebody using this as a second primary, you had, two people using primary suites in that house, this person gets ripped off a little bit because they do have kind of a smallish closet where one wall's taken up by the washer dryer.
Yeah, and the washer dryer is that new thing that they've got the one item that washes it and then dries it, so it's a little smaller than if it was stacked washer dryer or side by side washer and dryer, but still, they talked about how it was a second primary, and again, if you're going to have a primary, you should have a closet. That was one of the issues we had in our current house. We did not have much of a closet. Beautiful bedroom, but no closet.
Yeah, we fixed that. Just finished it recently. So one of our remodels, that one only took, why do they always take 7 months? I don't know. We should go and Rock the Block. We could get it done in 7 days. But anyway.
Yeah, use our house for this thing. Yeah.
So anything else about the twins that you want to add on before we go to our last team, Stephen?
Well, I guess talk about how they dumped furniture in there. I noticed that if you're looking at the fireplace, to the right of the fireplace, which is towards the stairs, there was a bench. And the bench reached from the fireplace to the stairs, so they're blocking part of the stairs coming up. So the staging, at least they didn't have curtains in front of their view. But no, I think all in all, they did a decent job. I think they used some green tile in the
ensuite bathroom.
And the ensuite, yeah, which is I reminiscent of what they did in the kitchen, I think, and I think they used maybe some of the same wallpaper. So, I think from that standpoint, they were consistent in some of the things that they did. I think that the wallpaper in the ensuite bathroom itself, not the green, that was so busy and so dark, and I didn't like the mirrors, but I think all in all, that's just a taste thing, right? The judges loved it. They loved the wallpaper. They loved the mirrors. They loved the way it looked. And so, I think they did a pretty decent job, but they still found a way to lose.
Okay. Enough of that. So, Stephen, okay, I want to move on to my personal favorite house of the week, which I think had the real wow factor, and that was Sarah and Brian. So you walk up to that first floor of their home, and you see just this wall of windows opening up the view. And there's nothing you can do when you have that lovely view of the water, not the ocean. There's nothing you can do better from a design perspective than just open that up and make that the feature of the room. And with that full wall of windows, they really did that. Not only that, because they had situated their kitchen differently, their kitchen was not up against the back of the house. The kitchen was set back, open concept kitchen that goes into the living room. But their living room was much bigger because their living room took the whole of the back of the house. So you really had space to hang out and relax in that living room, whereas the other one seemed kind of smallish, kind of like a sitting room sort of situation.
And this is where they were the team that didn't have a dining room to judge. They had decided not to have that. So, yeah, when you come up the stairs, the kitchen is kind of back to your left and back for them, as opposed to in front and to the left. For everybody else. So yeah, that open area was really great. Some question I have with what they did on the ceiling, which it does look amazing.
I loved it.
They didn't want to have lights hanging down, and so instead of like putting tile or drywall, I guess they had to have drywall, but they did what they called a parachute ceiling. So it's all cloth. And so they showed where they had the cloth there, and you have to attach it, and then you've got to shrink it so that it fits tightly. And that did look pretty cool. Their idea being that the lighting in that room would be these circular, not lights, but circular areas that are lower than the ceiling where I guess the upward light is coming out of it, and so the room is lit in that manner. And so they also they had a curved wall back in the kitchen, and they did another curved wall, so two curved walls coming up that side of the house, and the curved walls and the circular protrusions from the ceiling that were the lighting fixtures really did look nice. I think my concern is, back to trendy stuff that in a couple of years, if you get tired of it, what do you do? Yeah. What do you do?
See, I don't think I would ever get tired of it. And the technical term that they used on the show that this was a volume ceiling. I don't know what that means, but that's what they called it. And they also had lighting around the edges in addition to sort of behind those circular things that they had on the ceiling. So I'm going to talk for a minute about the kitchen placement and how that plays out here, because from the kitchen, because it's open to the living room, if you were sitting in the kitchen working or eating breakfast or doing dishes, you could see out that wall of windows in the back. So you're still enjoying the view from the kitchen. But one of the things Stephen and I were concerned about was probably if you own this home, you're going to do a lot of entertaining out on the deck, right? It's Florida. You want to be outside. So we were like, well, you'd have to drag all the food and everything back and forth from the kitchen to the deck, marching through the living room. So they did do something smart. They put like a little wet bar right next to the sliding doors in the back. So there's a sink there. I would probably put a little fridge there too. They didn't show that, but you probably could easily add that. And that's a place where you could stage dishes, bottle of wine. If you needed water when you were outside, you could jump in and get it. So you weren't having to run and back and forth through the house to the kitchen, every time you needed to refill some water or something like that. So I thought that was a nice compliment to what they did with the kitchen.
Yeah, I think that that worked out pretty well because they did have they did some really, I guess, curved furniture too. They had this really nice curved furniture as part of their staging that would be directly between you and the windows if you were in the kitchen. So yeah, okay, they've got this huge living room. They've got chairs. Again, it's not like they're walking a mile. But it is, if you're having people over, it's a lot of navigation between. So having that staging area, which wasn't huge, but they also had a table against the curved wall, a rectangular table against the curved wall.
And you could put a TV on that table.
And you could put a TV in. One of these things is not like the other. You could actually have a TV on that wall. My thing is, if you're going to have a curved wall and you're going to put a cabinet up against it, why don't you make a curved cabinet?
Well, maybe Wayfair didn't have one, and he didn't have time to build one.
Yeah,
so yeah, you could do more custom furniture if you wanted. I think before we go out of their living room, it does look like they added an extra window, to the outside wall facing the house next to them, not facing the water. So it seemed like more windows than the other teams did on that wall. And I love that too. Stephen knows this about me. I love natural light. I love houses that have lots of windows. So the fact that not only did they open up the whole back with this wall of windows, it looks like they even put in some additional windows to give more light to the room.
Yeah, they had a sofa sitting there, and so if you're in the living room, you come up the stairs, you're in the living room. This is the wall to your right, which is the one that faces the existing house that is out there. And they had windows that not quite floor to ceiling, but it probably started about 3 foot off the ground and went all the way to the top, and then it kind of went over the couch. They had they had this feature wall that was behind the sofa that went up, I don't know, probably about 6 feet. So you had the sofa, you had this feature wall. I think it was a wood backing, but don't remember because we were just looking at the windows going, wow, that looks great. And thankfully, the person whose house over there, he has a lot of palm trees and whatnot. So it's not like, so you've got your neighbor is providing some natural cover for them not to be able to see into your house.
Yeah. That was just happenstance, but I like that they took advantage of it.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah.
Okay, so the living room, wow factor when you walk up the stairs. I love the ceiling and the light and everything. I thought it was gorgeous. But then we go to the front of the house, and this is where, because they have this really big living room and the kitchen area and everything else, I think they didn't quite have as much space to work with in the front of the house. So basically they had a bedroom with an ensuite bathroom and an actual powder room, and shockingly, they had no shower in the powder room. But the problem with the powder room, in my mind, and I don't really know, I'm not good at layout, so I don't know how you'd get around this. If somebody out there is better, jump into my DM, let me know. But you have to actually walk through the pantry and through the storage area that they'd set up in the kitchen for appliances to get to the powder room. So I don't know that I'd love that, having people march through my pantry to get to the powder room. The powder room is sort of situated behind the curved wall, and you can actually see the curve in the powder room, which I think is kind of neat. I just don't love the access to the powder room. Stephen, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's weird. Yeah, it's just wrong. Because if you're entertaining, and if you just have house guests over and whatever, I mean, friends over or whatnot, and you're just sitting around and, no big deal. But that's an area that could potentially be somewhat messy. And so if you're entertaining, you would prefer not to have your guests in that circumstance walking through areas that weren't going to be picked up and, could be somewhat messy because that's where you've been doing staging or whatnot. So, yeah, I think that was given, especially considering that this house seems to, be being built on the idea of not having a dining room, of having an entertainment theme to it, because the goal of having that 24 feet of doors, the windows that you can see out, the balcony, and all of the stuff going on. And then if somebody needs to use the powder room, then they traipse back past your kitchen, through your pantry, down this hallway, into what I think is a very stark and soon to be not. I didn't care for the powder room. It was kind of a black and white. The sink and the toilet were black. Everything else is white. But this wallpaper had like these smattering of black designs on it. I think when the judges opened the door and you got to see it, it was like wow. And I just think the second time I went into the powder room, I'd be like, enough is enough. I don't like this anymore. But so I didn't like that part about it either.
Yeah,
I think they could have. I think they could have made some different decisions on where to put the powder room.
But I differ from you in that I thought the powder room was really cute, and I kind of like a dramatic powder room, so I didn't mind the design, but it was more the placement that bothered me. So let's talk about the thing that probably kept them from getting the first place win on their own. It was the decision to have just one ensuite bedroom. And also, I think the judges were not wowed by the bedroom. It was a tasteful but, not really exciting design in the bedroom, which personally I'm okay with because it's a guest room and you can always do something different with paint or with artwork or what have you to dress it up a little bit. But the judges seem to be wanting a little bit more out of that bedroom than what they got.
Yeah, I think the colors that they used, I think it was very calming. I think that, if you were to go in that bedroom, that it would be a place where you could walk in and you go, yeah, of course I'm going to sleep in here. But the judges, having seen that what they did with the ceiling and the lights and everything in the living area, expected something a little bit more dramatic in the guest bedroom, which they probably could have done. I mean, the powder room's definitely dramatic. So, I could they have done something different and still been dramatic and still have it to be the same calming? I'm assuming.
Yeah.
The judges did really like the bathroom tiling that they did. I'm not sure they were so wild about the floating mirror. That seemed a little goofy, but...
Yeah, well, they situated the sink and the vanity in the ensuite bathroom in front of a window, which is kind of weird, but I guess space-wise, maybe that's what they felt they had to do. And then because they didn't want the mirror to permanently be blocking the window, they had sort of a mirror that was a floating mirror. I guess it was on some sort of slider that could slide over when you were sitting at the vanity in front of the window.
Yeah, one of the judges even liked that there was the natural light, like when she's doing her makeup, that having it in front of the window was an advantage. That's what I thought I heard.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't, to me, it felt like this is the space we've got and we've got to find a way to work around it. That's what that bathroom felt like to me. And I did like their tile decisions and what have you that they made there. But the vanity in front of the window with the floating mirror, I mean, it's a guest room, so I guess it's okay. I wouldn't want it in my primary.
Yeah, and they didn't have a tub, which I called out, and I think you said didn't bother you, but they could have had a tub.
Yeah, I think tubs are kind of going out a little bit. A lot of people like the walk-in shower look. Me, I'm a tub lover. So, I always love to have a bathroom with a tub. But I think in modern design, a lot of houses, they'll have like maybe 1 or 2 tubs in the house. And then the other bedrooms will all be just a shower. So that's what they did. And what they did was good enough to tie for to tie for first place with first-time winners Keith and Evan. They finally notched a win. Stephen, what do you think about a tie?
Well, I think that they crammed a couple of winners into the winner circle. And I think that those 4 people felt like they didn't win, that since they had to share it, they didn't have to share the money. This week, the prize money was $2,000.
And each team got $2,000. They didn't have to split it.
Or fight over it. I would have had my money on Brian. But anyway, nobody really seemed happy. And Paige of the Paige and Mitch team said she felt like she lost twice. So now the twins did say they were happy that the boys got their win. As they call them. Keith and Evan, that they got the win. But last week they were upfront with the fact that they hate losing and they're tired of it. So I think that was a sentiment that they still had. I think, they had the two. The judges were saying, who are the judges? But the guy,
Mina and Brian.
Right. So Brian was saying that he thought that that Brian and Sarah had done the most things, and then Nina was saying that she thought that having the 2 bedrooms really did the appraisal value. So they had problems picking between those 2, and I think realistically I think that's fairly reasonable. I think that HGTV may have felt like this was their only chance to give Keith and Evan a win, and they may as well grab it with both hands because next week.
Well, wait. Before we get to next week, Stephen.
No, I'm not previewing. Next week, as I said earlier, I'm sure we'll be going back to the art projects. But anyway, so not to diminish that they got the win, and this week they really worked hard and they did a good job, and I think that they were definitely not the bottom 2.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think so a couple things. First of all, there's a Veep episode where Gary, played by Tony Hale, says a tie is like kissing your sister. And that's kind of how all these teams felt. Like no one was happy, like you say, Stephen. I mean, they were happy to get the win, and I think Evan and Keith were happy to get a win. But I think it was a little colored by the fact that it wasn't just their win.
Well, they even said that hopefully they can get a lone win.
Yeah, and I think I think the 2 best teams were tied for the win. So I did like their spaces and the choices they made in, thinking about aesthetics, functionality, and appraisal value. I did feel like, the math would probably put both of them to the top in terms of what they did. But I also think maybe the tie was a nod to marital harmony because Brian and Mika, I think it's pronounced Kleinschmidt. I'm not 100% sure. Apparently, they're a married couple. So if one really loved Evan and Keith and the other one really loved Brian and Sarah, maybe rather than fight it out, they just talked HGTV into rewarding 2 prizes.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, well, that wraps it up for this episode. They ended in a tie. Do we want to talk about the previews at all, Stephen? What are they doing next week?
Well, I think I mentioned it earlier. They are going upstairs. They're going to the top floor of to the top floor of a 3-story building where the top floor is the second floor.
Yes, and they're going to be doing the master suite. And it looks like chaos reigns next week. And I'm very, very worried for Evan and Keith because in the previews, they talk about putting a fireplace in the master closet. I just have so much to say about that. I'm not going to say it this week, and hopefully I won't say it next week because hopefully they decide not to go with that plan. But we shall see. I love Master Suite Week. It's probably my favorite week of the show because, we've done a couple of extensive Master Suite remodels on our own, and I love all the possibilities there. So I'm really looking forward to the next episode.
Yeah, it should be good. I guess I can give my personal preview that Keith and Evan will not win. And I know you don't believe that I think this, but I think that Leslie and Lindsay are going to find a way to lose.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure they won the Master Suite competition in season 3, which was their previous season, and they won it because they actually put in decent closets.
Oh yeah, Kevin. We keep calling Kevin. Keith and Evan didn't put in closets in the master.
They put in very small closets.
Very small.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't know, Stephen.
I think
the Twins have
great.
a pretty good shot of winning, so we'll see.
The one of the things that I believe about this show, and I have absolutely no insight except what I think in my own little, with my mind when my two neurons get to knocking against each other, is this is a show on HGTV where they bring in HGTV stars with more weeks in the show than the stars. In order to highlight the stars, they want the stars to have a week to win. Which means that Keith and Evan, the first time they were there and they didn't even win a week, really had to work hard because HGTV is invested in making these people look good because it's their shows. Mm-hmm. So, that being said, yes, of course they're going to throw Leslie and Lindsay something.
Well, we will
They may
see.
earn it. They may earn it. I'm not saying they're necessarily not going to earn it. But seriously, that's part of why they have this show is to promote the other shows.
Yeah, for sure. And you'd like to think that everybody would get a win. And it is kind of stunning that Evan and Keith did not get a win. It is Evan and Keith. I always want to say Evan and Kevin, but Evan and Keith did not get a win in their first season is pretty shocking. But we'll see what happens. And hopefully they'll have some wonderful designs next week. And may the best team win.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right. Well, hey, I think that's it for this episode, Stephen.
I'm done. I was done before. I just been making stuff up.
All right. Well, hey, this is Amy and Steven signing off for Talk the Block, and we'll see you next week for Renovating the Master Suite.